Welcome everybody to the Jeskidding show. In case you're not familiar with the show, Jeskidding is where sometimes I say something mildly inappropriate and I say, I was just kidding. And other times I say something maybe thought-provoking and then it's just kidding and a light bulb goes off. Welcome to the show, which is broadcast live on Twitch to a studio audience of however many people show up. And we live interact with the chat. Plus we have two guests today. We have Guy Rader, who has been here before. Say hello, Guy.
Hello, Guy.
There you go. And we have Redneck Rebel, who is very contrary to his namesake. Redneck, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me again. It's awesome.
You're very welcome. You're an honored guest of the chat room, and a little bit of a pest, an honored guest and a slight pest.
I guess.
Yeah. So today's topic is political correctness and comedy. And is anyone allowed to be funny anymore? Mm-hmm. Can people say things with free range that they think will make other people laugh? And what is that? And where is the line of offensive, sensitivity, and boring? Right? Because boring is a big factor of this. So let's open the topic up, and we have a chat room that will contribute parts of this conversation, and say, what's the state of the union of your ability to be funny? And I think this is ironic, by the way, because I think there's no better spokesman for political correctness than three white guys and one being from the South. Okay, let's start.
Totally.
Yeah. We couldn't have a counterbalance.
I think we are all uniquely qualified to speak on this subject.
We needed a token something. I'm not saying black guy, but we needed a token for somebody to have the other side. Unfortunately, we couldn't get that because I offended that person and they don't want to come back. So, no, that's not true. That's not true. They're just on a different episode, so I don't want to wear them out. So today's topic is talking about political correctness and comedy, but not comedy just as a professional, but comedy as like a personal thing, you know? So what is your quick, immediate take on this subject? Let's start with Redneck Rebel.
Gosh. It's kind of like one that's like hard to comment on. So like everyone's brand of humor is like different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so what's offensive to you is probably not offensive to somebody else. I think there's definitely a line. Like, I guess if you're making jokes, you really need to make sure that things that you say are in good taste.
Right. Well, who determines that taste?
That's kind of the discussion, I think, right? Is like, everyone has their own perspective of what's humorous and what is considered to be, you know, some things can be a sensitive subject for one and then not so much for another. So I think it's kind of hard to say.
So if you're in a room full of three people, and I'm talking about you, and I'll speak to myself for a second. You're in a room full of three people, and you know that one of them lost like somebody to cancer in the room. Mm-hmm. But the other two are there and will have like shocking types of humor. And you got this great cancer joke. You're like, oh my God, this dude, this is going to kill him. This joke is so funny, it will metastasize itself around the world. It's viral, right? It's going to multiply. Right? So I just made up a cancer joke. That's terrible.
I have a stage 4 joke.
Yeah, you got a stage 4 joke, right? And so what do you do if a person in the room has cancer? Redneck, we'll let you start, and then Guy, what would you guys do in that case? Would you tell the joke knowing that one person in the room may be offended by it?
I definitely would not.
Interesting.
Because I steer on the side of like less confrontation, right? And like I wouldn't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
and
just for the record, yeah.
Understand, you know, people's feelings, and you know, maybe they have a family member that goes through that kind of thing, and they don't view that as a joke. It's not humorous to them, but like to somebody else, it's going to be like, you know, you're making light of my situation.
Right.
Like. So I wouldn't do it.
So you're like, a lot of people use the word punching down, right? That's easy to do, is to punch down. But maybe that doesn't apply in that case. Guy, what would you do?
Well, you know, if you've got a small sample size, like 3 people, assuming you all know each other,
right?
I do think there is discretion that comes into play there, right? Do I think it's inappropriate to say on paper? Absolutely. But I'll say this, like my sister just beat breast cancer last year, and she liked nothing more than
Yeah, I read her jokes. Her jokes are hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. And so would I say it? I guess it's maybe, right? And that's kind of where we're at right now. And I think if you didn't have a thought as to this might be insensitive, then you shouldn't say it. Well, you probably say it anyway because you're just a fucking dick.
Me? Right? Obviously, I'm a total dick. This is known. Right? You are what you eat, and apparently I eat a lot of dicks. I don't really eat a lot of dicks. See, my whole comedy routine is based upon that moment that I just did, right? Mm-hmm. It's catching myself in the middle of over the line, not past the line, right? And I'm like, I'm on the fucking line. What do I do? And that's me, and then my escape route from the line. But a lot of people don't navigate that line very well, and they just go right over, or they don't go over it at all. So what if, okay, so you wouldn't tell the joke for 3 people. I probably wouldn't either, knowing that somebody may be offended in the room. I really do like to know my audience, even if it's friends. But at the same time, what if it's 10 people? Now you don't know that somebody has cancer.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're just taking a chance, really, at that point.
Right. So that's like, but okay, so would you take the chance? It's a really funny joke. We're not talking a racism joke. We're not talking a Me Too joke, because you can't make those right now. It'll shift. Well, maybe you can, but that's up to you. I'm not going to do it today because I don't want to have this come back. Because I think there's plausible deniability past like 10 years, but that's changed too. Now it's to like 50 years. Now it's like, oh my God, you said that thing about a raccoon when you were 12. Lena Dunham, whatever you think of her, wrote something in her book about like playfully touching her sister's private parts when she was like 7 or she was like 9, whatever it was. People are like, you're a child molester. So like,
yikes.
She's a little kid. So, but it's we have the Wayback Machine of morality now. So it's a very dangerous time to take those chances. Do you agree? Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's definitely become a minefield, right? I don't think, especially those of us who are a little older, I don't think any of us have any time that we've, not said something in the past that we can think of or identify that could be offensive to someone else.
Oh, God. Or every day.
That you recognize was in truly bad taste, but it was hilarious at the time. I'll offer up an example. When I was doing improv in college, I would do a character called Tard Boy. And the joke was, here was some stupid retard. I
literally almost spit up my coffee. I can't even help it because it's shocking. It's shocking. And I want to laugh. I want to laugh. I'm laughing on the inside, but not on the outside. But
it was, what? I realized at the time it was cheap and it wasn't funny.
It is cheap.
And and it's not to say that nothing can be, there are just certain things that are off limits, but, at the time, it was an easy laugh and cheap to do, and I wish I had come up with something more clever at the time.
I'm laughing at the fact that you did it, though. Do you know what I mean? I'm laughing at it, and because I'm juvenile, and I'm the kind of person that will laugh at something as long as it's not personalized. Let's go to the chat room for a second. So Liquor Cat said, if you're a comedian and it's a job for you, have a style that you get fans to know, so get them familiar with you. If you know something is insensitive towards someone, the other person should be big enough to say, hey, that offends me. We'll have a discussion. So that's tricky because if everything you say to try to get a laugh has a ramification from one sample size person, and that person is taken so seriously that they sometimes have the power to shut down you making those jokes in the future from that small sample size. I feel there's a danger in that because you may be prohibited from making that joke. Now, the other 99 people that laughed won't get to hear that joke and won't get to have that laugh. And that laugh is not at that one person's expense. It's just at the joke itself. What? Hey! I'm going to sneeze. Oh, my God. Oh, fuck, I'm dying.
Which brings up the idea of we should really consider a blooper reel of this, and that could be a part of it.
You know something? I don't like to curse at some people, but redneck, right? I just wanted to hit that button because it makes me laugh. So let's define comedy. Let's define comedy and say comedy for some people, right? When a child, I've read this before. I've read a book or two in my lifetime. When children are very small, the peekaboo is what makes them laugh, because peekaboo is the act of covering your face and then exposing it to them, and it's a surprise. So the baby sees the surprise and laughs, and they go, "Oh my God, it's so funny," because I didn't expect it. So a lot of comedy is hearing something that's unexpected.
Yeah.
That's why things that are shocking, and I'm not saying hateful shocking, but just shocking, like inappropriate, over the top, sometimes even hateful, but not necessarily meant to be hateful, can get a laugh. Because like, oh my God, I can't believe you just fucking said that. You know what I mean? Like when somebody falls down, that's why people laugh.
Oh my gosh, I'm so bad for that.
Right, you can't help it.
Laughter is a response for me for a lot of things. If I'm like in a really awkward situation, like if somebody like does something really just that shocks me and surprises me, like I laugh all the time, and it's like it seems like that's like just like my personality. I just go to that, like I'm like, oh, okay, like I can't believe that guy just did that,
It's a physiological response a lot of times.
Absolutely.
I mean, like a lot of the other people, I love those surprise videos, even though I would never want to be involved in one. Like, guy dresses up as a bush, and people are walking by, and he jumps out as a human bush, and their first reaction is shock or fear, but then they laugh. Right? There's that release after something horrible has happened to them.
Horrible. So look. I mean, let's define the word joke. And then we're going to talk about being sensitive to other people, because that's very, very important to me. That's something I practice every day. So even though I say inappropriate things from time to time, I'm like the most like touchy-feely, not in an inappropriate, unwanted hug kind of way, person you'll ever meet. Like, I mean, I'm like one of these people who's always trying to think of the other person's feelings before I do anything. But I say jokes just because I just want to be a little unfiltered sometimes. And sometimes two words that rhyme make me laugh, and I want the person to laugh. I want them to have a good time. But I think we're getting to a point culturally where there's such a moralistic censorship happening. It's scary. Comedians don't want to play colleges. People are being flogged for saying something they said 30 years ago. I mean, I said all kinds of crazy shit on the internet. But for me, it's all about intent, right? It's all about like, well, what did you really actually mean by that? Because, there are people, you take the South as a pretty polite place. When you say a redneck is from the South, who would have guessed that? Would you consider, would you consider the South, for the most part, a pretty mannered place, redneck?
I think generally, yeah. I mean, like, I've not really like traveled a whole lot, but I'd say there's probably a huge cultural difference for sure from like New York and here. But I think generally people are pretty friendly,
pretty mannered, right? So like you could say same thing about Japan, right? Pretty mannered and pretty careful what's said. And I'm not Japanese, so whatever. I'm culturally appropriating things I don't understand at the moment, and I'm saying that to be a wise ass. But you take Japan and people who are more mild-mannered, but intent, right? You could say please and thank you and ma'am and sir all day long. But if what you really mean is fuck you, I want to kill your daughter, whatever, then that's what I want to figure out. I don't care the words that you use, the utterances that you say, the jokes that you make. I want to find out what you mean by them. But a lot of people don't want to do that homework, right? They don't want to. They hear a comedian on a stage use a word that is passé, that's been changed by society. I mean, I'm not going to say anything negative words today. Take the F word, right? It's not fuck anymore, but it's for gay people, right? That's one that's been sort of cycled out for a lot of people. But a lot of people grew up with that word. I mean, South Park made a whole episode out of it. And how do you like? And they did an episode that was not from hate, but just explained their usage of that word. What's your take on it? I just want to hold that thought, guy. I want to go to the chat room. I usually don't give trolls a voice, but I'm gonna for this one time because I think it's a funny example. Somebody in the chat room, who will be nameless, said, "You're a fucking disgrace to your family, man." And how do you know my family's not proud of me? How do you know my family is not the biggest group of inappropriate scumbags ever? How do you know I'm not like the thing they always wanted? I'm like the president to them. In fact, if I'm an inappropriate scumbag, that's not really that far off. So I did good. So I appreciate the compliment, dude. But my point is, that person's comment, right? What was the intent of the person's comment, right? Was the intent to, A, be funny, right? And so my brain has to try to figure that out. But I'll do the work of trying to figure that out. That's where we're struggling as a culture. But, Guy, I want you to answer that part of it. So take a cliff note on that thing, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So I want to figure out that intent, right? Are they trying to be funny? Are they trying to hurt my feelings, right? Because that's an intent issue, right? Are they trying to just get attention and say something shocking, not for a laugh, but just to get attention because mommy and daddy did bad things to them as a child? So I don't know. But should I have to do that homework as to their intent, or should the words speak for themselves? What do you think?
It kind of goes both ways, and this is what I kind of wanted to say when we kicked off, is that what we have to really realize is that words have meaning. Right. Like it or not, words have meaning. Right. And the value of words can never be understated, right? And there are certain words that carry with it certain connotations and meaning, and then that's where the offense or slighting can come, right, from using certain words. So I'm all for us evolving our language in a way that we can speak about things in a respectful way. But the problem is that we are, I think, and I think everyone pretty much agrees with this, that we are getting too sensitive. There's too many trigger words. There's too many, right? And just like you said, there's you have to consider the source. And I think in our age of instant gratification, if you say a certain word, I want to instantaneously attach a value to you because you use that word.
Right. And so
regardless of context.
Do you feel that there's ownership at that moment of that word? Like, meaning that, like, say you use the N-word, like, and a lot of my friends, some of them who are white do. And some of them, one of them really, it's not really said in a hateful way. It's said in an urban, I'm an ignorant piece of shit kind of way, but he's actually a decent guy, unless you date him. But I don't have any plans to do that. So words have power. So this is the words have power. It's not an argument, but it's a side of the equation, right? And I think what we're talking about today is like, because this show is not about reaching any conclusions on anything, because we're not smart people. That's never going to happen. But this show is about like talking about shit and just being real about it. You know what I mean? And so words have power, okay? And then there's the idea of like words being weaponized, you know? If they're weaponized, meaning they're used against a group of people or a class of people and used to degrade them and keep them down. And I actually believe there's some merit to that. You know what I mean? And with certain key words. Obviously the M word and others like it are used to sort of treat people like the other. And I think as like the Nazi Germany, like there can be used words that are developed to sort of enclose people in a very hateful box. What do you think of that, guys? Redneck. I don't mean to ask Redneck that question. I feel like I've rigged the equation. Be like, hey, Redneck, answer the N-word question. That's a good idea, Jess. Yeah, so that's going to win the internet. I'm going to get clicks out of that.
Well, it's not anything that I would ever say or agree with, right? Like, it's just like not my style to say things like that. Because I mean, you got to think that's a stereotype that I get all the time, and something that people typically assume about me, which I think is really unfortunate. But it's just like, it's just so it's disrespectful, right? Like, I don't think there's really any context you can use that where it's like acceptable,
right? So. Well, but barring that, right? So we're getting back to the idea of weaponizing words, and I don't want to go too deep into this because I think it's a little off topic, but it's contained within it, right? Which is words have meaning, right? So if you say some shit, understand that it means some shit, right? But I think that we're at the point where you've got two polar ends of the spectrum right now. And it's just, listen, I think this is a fucking terrifying time to be an artist or to be anybody that expresses themselves. Terrifying. Because I feel like you're in the danger zone at all times. I feel like you say the wrong thing, it's a career ender. Or you say the wrong thing, and then 5 years later, it's a career ender retroactively. How fucking scary is that, dude? That if I make the wrong joke, so I'm a guy that's a funny guy. I say a lot of dumb shit, you know? There's a person out there who may or may not be watching,
really.
right? I did a song about her called, what did I say? I called her, I said that nobody wanted to date her because she had red hair and that she was a mermaid and all mermaids have AIDS, right? And I sang the song to YMCA on the air, right? I don't know. And she's laughing hysterically, and she was somebody finally made a song out of me, and da-da-da-da. Now, somebody who died of AIDS ain't going to find that funny. Well, they're dead, so... Somebody who's dying of AIDS,
that person would not.
Maybe the skeleton in the grave will be like, the jaw will be like laughing, but the person who's actually dying or had something, maybe they wouldn't find that funny. Well, maybe like your sister who had breast cancer needs to laugh. So I want to sort of switch that subject and say some people need to laugh. Like people who have terrible diseases and all that, you have to laugh. Laughter makes pain go away. You know what I'm saying? It's the cure sometimes. Like if I'm crazy stressed out, just expressing myself and saying shocking shit and being silly and being reckless, as Dave Chappelle said, it's important. But we've gotten to the point where people consider everything weaponized. You know what I mean? That intent is getting thrown out the window. So you have two sides of the spectrum. You have the one side of the spectrum, which is don't say anything that could possibly offend even the 0.001% of the room. Well, then you ain't gonna be able to say shit. You're basically, you're really thought policing conversation. You're as guilty as like the Puritan right was walking around town telling people what they can and can't say. Then you have the other side, which is that this is the sort of political climate. You have the Donald Trumps of the world who don't give a shit about what they say and the meaning that it has and the effect that it has. And a whole slew of people who have been waiting to become unchained by this. And both are wrong. Both are stupid. Because you should be able to make a joke, but also on the receiving side, people should be able to try to figure out what your actual intent is. I tell people to go fuck themselves all the time, but I say it out of pure love. I'm not joking. I'm like, fuck you. That doesn't mean fuck you. Not the literal sense, nor the negative sense. You guys interested? No, I'm just playing. Right.
I think it's a good point, though. I think that's like if I was to like say something like that, it's like a term of endearment,
right?
For me, where it's like, you know, all of my really, really, really good friends, you would, if you saw us like talking to each other, you'd think we was about to fight or something.
Right.
Like we talk in the gym, and I'll be like, dude, don't be a pussy. Pick that up. You're being a pussy, you know.
Right.
We rib each other, man, and it's just like,
it's funny.
It's just a thing.
It's funny.
It's hilarious. I do that with my friends all the time.
But I wouldn't say to my super unmasculine friend,
or you wouldn't say it to your boss. You know.
That's a bad idea. Well, can anyone be any funny more? Not at fucking work. Work, it's even worse, right? But I think it's down to like social media, dude. I mean, I'm nervous all the time, but that's what I think is fun. Like I'm just waiting to get the thing in the mail that's like, hey, guess what? 10 years ago, you said a thing, you uttered something, but I didn't mean anything negative. I don't think I've thought many hateful thoughts in my life. I mean, everybody has those moments. And I'm a person that thinks out loud, right? That's just me, right? And I theorize things and I'll say things and I'll come up with theories that even maybe 2 weeks later, I don't fucking agree with. But why can't I explore the possibility of something funny and making my friends have a better time by trying out not material not in the professional sense, but just trying out a part of my personality that's funny. Like, so I feel like there's a muzzle out there that's trying to turn us actually into snowflakes. Which, by the way, that term is ridiculous because the other side is snowflakes too. Who gives a shit? It's all stupid. It's fucking dumb.
It is.
It's all stupid. I don't think that any of those people speak for any of us, to be honest with you. You know, the thing that kills me too. And then, guys, you have the floor for a little bit, and then let's do a little more conversing because forgive me, I'm pontificating what the fuck I'm doing right now. The thing that kills me too is that people have a very ever-changing landscape of what's allowed to be funny.
Mm-hmm.
And then punish those that fall outside of those landscapes. I mean, take away their right to live and eat, dude. That's crazy. I mean, somebody in the chat room mentioned the Kevin Hart thing. He had to go on tour and do the apology tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel mixed about that. I think it's good that he makes his intent clear. You know? But I think it's bad that something that was more allowed to be funny in the past now is not, is now being used in a way to take away his livelihood. That's scary. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right on the money with that, and I think I think a lot of people feel the same way. It's just that, you know, the extremist voices on either side are by nature inflammatory, and by nature will be heard more often.
Right.
So it stokes anger in all of us on both sides, and wherever you fall. So when you talk about, just like you said, he was engaging in comedy that was much more common and acceptable back then. Does that mean he was a homophobe? You know, again, context and history are very important. Here's the other thing that kills me. Is that say, you know, I'll take my Tard Boy example, right? So
I might name my son that.
you might, depending on the
listen, I didn't use the word. I didn't use the T word. I riffed off your joke, so I'm safe. I'm safe. Safe instead of fucking umpire. I'm safe.
But there was a point where I realized that wasn't really very funny or clever, and I should never do any sort of comedy like that again.
Right.
I learned something. So most people who want to not even control your speech, but want you to be careful about what you say. Let's say it's even as simple as that.
Right.
I mean, if someone like learns a lesson or knows, you know, had a certain opinion about something that was toxic and now has a different opinion and has changed, well, good for them.
Right. Well, I'd like to talk about that for a second. I hear you're talking that to Redneck. And then we should get back to comedy. Really quickly, somebody from the chat reminded me, I'm here today with Guy Rader, actor, creator, tech person, on and on and on. And I'm also here with Redneck Rebel, who's a firefighter, also into IT and tech, weightlifter, playboy, you know.
Man about town.
Cunning linguist.
Yes.
You know.
Or can I use the joke? And, you know,
big supporter of the LBGTIQWZX.
I was going to say he's a man about town, but he's more of a man about holler.
Man about holler, yes. It would totally. So, what we were talking about something very interesting. Oh, so what I don't like about this whole thing is that people, and we're going to go back to humor in a second because I think that's the main topic today, but I feel like there's no opportunity for growth, right? We just want to punish for the moral crime of going too far with humor. I'm not talking about the moral crime of an actual crime or even a moral crime of saying something in a hateful way that's a weaponized word in a way that's meant to degrade, demean other people and hold them down. All these things, right? Those things morally should be held accountable. But even in those cases, and much more so in the form of comedy, right? I feel that we don't have a lot of room for that person to grow. Liberals, of which I am one, right? But I'm also moderate on some subjects because I'm a complicated person and you can't put me in a fucking box. But liberals have, as a group, and I know I'm stereotyping, look, I have to give 400 fucking disclaimers. This is what comedy is these days. Discussion. It's ridiculous. But liberals, if a guy kills somebody and goes to jail, right, and gets out, liberals would be like, served his time or whatever he did. Served his time. He should get out. I mean, think about the Susan Sarandon movie with Dead Man Walking, right? The sympathy for that guy who had killed people, right? But if he gets out, served his time, he should be forgiven. Republicans or whatever, the right's like, kill him forever, whatever, lock away the key, whatever. But they're like, he did his crime, let him out, let him have a good life. Right? Do you agree with this? That's kind of like the more liberal stance, forgive and forget. So why is it a guy who kills somebody can get out of jail and be like, oh, yes, he should be totally good. But if you said something inappropriate about whatever the flavor du jour today, whatever those words are, I don't know what the fuck I'm saying, about, say, the Me Too movement or something else, in those moments, that's unforgivable.
Yeah.
That's 10 years from now, you can never work again. How disturbing is that thought process? Because it's the thought process of policing morality. And in terms of comedy, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Fucking comedy, dude. The whole job is to say shit that makes people talk, think, laugh, bug out. So, what do you think?
And comedy's all about power relationships too, right? It's about, at the end we were talking about surprise earlier in this podcast. And yeah, so you want to be surprised because the person of lower status got something over the one on higher status, or a higher status guy, beat someone who was trying to usurp him because he was so clever.
Right.
So yeah, that is, you're absolutely right. The job of a comedian or comedy is to shock, I mean, but I also wanted to say, like, I'm glad, because I don't think, if anything has come of these culture wars or anything, is that I'm happy that someone who's just purely a shock comic doesn't have nearly the purchases they used to.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm talking about, like, the Andrew Dice Clays. I know
I agree with that.
People are fans or whatever. But, but someone who just goes out there and is, just using very easy shock talk tactics.
It's like you're like the basic bitch of comedy. Yeah, you're the basic bitch of comedy. No, I agree with you. I think, but the Howard Stearns was very sophisticated about what he did. Like, he could be base, but he could also be very clever, very smart. And all the years that he couldn't curse, he had to work around it. And they said all kinds of things. So why is it that some comics get a pass? Like, if you dug out all of his stuff, like, it'd be pitchforks in the street if they chose to. Now, I love Howard Stern, so I'm not saying anything negative about him at all. He's one of the greatest. And you could say the same thing about Louis C.K., but that's a whole nother, I'm not going to, please, I don't want to be yelled at.
Yeah.
I've spent my life trying not to get yelled at, right? Please, I don't want to be yelled at. What he did was wrong, blah, 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 blah. So, but you talk about...
that brings up a really good point, and sorry, you can go on this.
No, please, cut me off. And Redneck, just pipe in anytime, please.
The difference between words and behavior, right? If I make a joke about a minority or whatever, that is orders of magnitude different than, I went out and grabbed one of those people, this minority, and beat them with a baseball bat, right?
Yeah, obviously, but not in the new culture, dude. It's because words can be given a megaphone now with social media. Like, that's why it's so scary to be funny. And what you get is you get the opposite reaction too, right? You get the other side. So, like, I play video games all the time. I stream on Twitch. I'm very public at these days. Scary, unbeknownst to my parents. But I don't even know what that means. I get kids in video games, and they come on, and they're tired of being told what to say. And they want a reaction. Like, the other day, guy came on. I was playing a video game. It was not chat roulette. And the guy came on, and...
Is that even still a thing?
What? Dude, what
is that the thing where
you're missing out? You're missing out, bro. You're missing out. Let me tell you. So,
chat with strangers.
Yeah, it's more. It's chat crap table now. Craps. It's not roulette, right? It's where it's just everybody's pooping on camera all the time. So the
chat rate.
No, you can't. You can't make that joke.
I can't.
No,
I shouldn't have.
That's coming back. You're 20 years from now. You're fired. So, what the fuck are we saying?
I guess if I was gonna like have a stance on these kinds of things, like I've kind of just been like trying to figure out like how I'm gonna say this. Like,
well,
I think
you talk slower than
like,
me, so it's easier for you.
Well, so I know just the only example that I really know is I know there's been like a few wrestlers. Like there was a wrestler recently that had a tweet dug up that he tweeted like 8 years ago. That was like probably in bad taste. It was definitely in bad taste.
Mm-hmm.
But the point I'm making is like, for me, it's like I always give people the benefit of the doubt at least the first time. Like, and I think people can change. Like, think about things that you two have said, which when you all were like my age, I'm not trying to call you old.
That's all right.
You guys are nice young
Hey, I'm offended on behalf of people older than you.
Well, it's like when you guys were like 24 or 25, right? Like there wasn't iPhones and people recording you everywhere. And it's like, you probably, well, I wouldn't even say probably, you definitely said a thing or two in your life that you wouldn't want.
Every day, bro.
Yeah.
Every fucking day. I practice
Jeskid
my
still
routine.
does that,
Yeah, I go out to the store. And let me tell you something right now. When I go to the store, I make people laugh all goddamn day long. Everybody. Because social media is a totally different beast than real people. Social media is, oh my God.
Right.
You know, in real life, they're like, well, that's fucked up. That's funny.
Well, I'm sure we've all had the experience where you're chatting, you know, you're adding to a thread or chatting online. And since, you know, the tone of voice is not a thing in text, people, can't tell you how many times I've made what I thought was a very clever joke. And then about 18 people are like, I will find you and kill you.
No,
and
Jesus.
I'm like, no, I'm on your side.
Yeah,
right?
dude, I'm being sarcastic. I'm being ironic.
Right.
Like I'm providing commentary on what you're saying. I'm adding literal color to what you're saying.
And it's hard for like a random person to get that right without having context on like the kind of like character that he
Great
is,
point.
right?
Great point. So here's the reasons why this is happening. Right? We've identified two. I usually like to come up with some fucking list by the end of this shit. Right? No one on the receiving side wants to take the time to figure out intent of the joke, of what's being said, whatever the fuck. Number two, no one wants to figure out the context of where it's being said. They just want to assume it if it fits their self-righteous need to be offended in that moment. For some people. I can't say it's everybody. On the inverse side, people who say shit that's just outright don't want to take responsibility for that shit or just saying it because they're tired of being told they can't. So you have this sort of like at odds universe. And in the middle are people just trying to communicate.
Right. Well, what's the go-to defense if you say something, even if you mean it, and someone gets offended or is challenging you on it? I was joking.
I was just kidding.
I was just kidding.
I was just kidding. Cop-out. He designed that. Me and Guy actually, I guess, random.
We were joking about this
We discussed this, before.
Just kidding.
Right before we went live, I said, "Well, I guess it's a great cop-out in case he does pop off with something really ridiculous."
That's fucking hilarious.
He said, "Boys, it's the context of the podcast." See,
that's so funny.
I was just kidding.
It's well, I mean, look, but it's not necessarily a defense. It's just I'm just doing conversation, dude. This is just conversation. Shit gets said that you don't mean in conversation all the fucking time, every day. I'll be like, oh my God, I totally love you. I don't actually fucking love you.
To totally a person, it may be like, what's wrong with that guy?
Nah, but dude, I'm in a fucking game. I'm playing a video game with people, and I'm like, oh, dude, I fucking love you, man. You're awesome. I'm not marrying that dude. You know what I'm saying? It's out of context. It's like in the moment, I love you. I'll suck your.
I mean, that doesn't make.
Just kidding.
I'm just kidding. It's so funny, but it's not a defense always. You know what I'm saying? It's a way of being.
But it is a real thing. But that again,
Joker
context matters.
Like the court jester isn't really fucking, pulling fucking whatever. What do they pull out of their pants? I don't know. Not their dicks. The
talking about the
confetti. I don't know what they do in the court, asshole. The court jester, he does tricks. He's dancing. I always think of a clown, but they didn't have clowns back in Game of Thrones. Whatever that was. So where does this go, right? Because Americans are becoming very sensitive on two very particular sides. Mm-hmm. Americans especially. Other countries, they think we're fucking nuts. Oh. But I also hear that Canada has done the same thing. Canada has you can't say this, you can't say this. It's very difficult to. Let's talk about generational humor, too. Somebody in the chat room had mentioned before, and forgive me, I can't cover all the comments, but I read them all. Somebody had mentioned Eddie Murphy's sets. It says, go look at all of Eddie Murphy's old sets. He's making fun of trans and gay people. You can't even say trans anymore, I think. All day, good material. At the time, it did not age well, but no one digs up his stuff and yells at him, right? Mm-hmm. I still think that shit is funny if I see it. Maybe it's because I'm from that generation. But maybe it's just because it's funny.
Well, it's also it's well crafted as well.
Yeah, it's well done. It's at least thought out.
It's not. Yeah, it's not the easy joke. I think. And this is what I wanted to say something about.
Please.
Because to bring it back to comedy as well, mm-hmm. is that comedy is an art form, and what does art do? Art reflects life. Right. At least usually good art does.
But it also challenges.
Sure, but if you watch a drama or a reality show, or let's take away a reality show, but if you're watching like a really good film, right, and it's about a sensitive subject, the characters will act and say things that makes you cringe. I don't like it. I don't like what that person is or what they said.
Right.
But you're never going to accuse the actor of being that person.
Right.
Whereas when it comes to stand-up comedy,
right.
Or streaming. Or streaming. You don't have a persona necessarily
to fall back on.
Truly hide behind,
Right. And there's terms of service, even for Twitch and for other things, that are so loose that depending on who decides to enact them, they're open to complete and utter moral interpretation. And that's where the idea of the comedy mob comes along. Mm-hmm. The comedy mob says, we don't like this person for this reason. Let's get rid of them. You know what I'm saying? So let's talk about an old movie. This is very interesting. Those that haven't seen Revenge of the Nerds, right?
Oh, yeah.
Revenge of the Nerds has some stuff in it, that in today's climate is considered inappropriate. And I'm not saying it was appropriate or not inappropriate. And the questions, the scenes are basically they do a panty raid. They steal panties forcefully, I guess, by taking panties. They also put well, if you're going to take panties, sniff them first.
You got to commit. You have to commit.
Yeah, you got to go all the way. So, but in Revenge of the Nerds, they also set up cameras where they can see the girls naked. And then I think there's a scene where a guy dresses up. He's dressed as maybe Darth Vader, which is kind of ironic because the new movies sucked. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but any chance I can take a dig at the prequels especially. No, suck it. So, and then the girl sleeps with him thinking that it's her boyfriend. So these two are all in violation of the Me Too Movement Act, right?
Is that what people are upset with Revenge of the Nerds about?
I think
really?
So. It's the demonization of women.
I just remember someone saying, oh boy, Revenge of the Nerds didn't age well. And I was really thinking about it, not having seen it in a long time. But I remember that being one of my favorite movies.
Dude, it's a fucking great comedy. And I'm not afraid to say it, even though I'm a little afraid to say it. I'm a little afraid. Because I'm a little afraid. I'm sorry, go ahead, Redneck.
I'm actually not familiar with the Me Too Act. What is the Me Too Act?
Where if you act out, you get clubbed in the head by a seal named Me Too. I don't know what that means. It's not an act. It's not a fucking law, right? Thank you, CP.
Right. I mean, it's like a movement of sort.
Yeah,
it's basically calling out people for very toxic behavior, specifically, most usually men against women.
Right.
I don't know if you've read anything about like Harvey Firestein and Louis C.K. And
Harvey Firestein did something?
No, it's not Harvey Firestein.
You say Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Firestein. I think he would be a celebrity of a Harvey Firestein. Isn't he the fucking gay dude from Independence Day?
Oh my God, I can't believe I got caught up in the
So
Me Too.
Aurelia from the chat has qualified this because 3 straight white men should not be defining Me Too. That's fact, right?
Yeah.
She said,
No,
Me
thank
Too
you.
is about women who have been sexually assaulted talking about it. Me
Yes.
Too, as in I have also been sexually assaulted too.
Not being afraid to talk about it
Right.
and call out toxic behavior.
Absolutely. But I think that's what it led to that. You know what I'm saying? I think the Me Too movement started to become much more all-encompassing, but 100% it started with sexual assault, and 100% it also, I believe, started with not Harvey Feinstein, but Harvey Weinstein. Weinstein.
Which I do know about that, and that is that's terrible.
Well, listen, it's fucking horrifying.
It is horrifying.
And we all have, as a man in this culture, like, you know, that was raised by basically my mother. You know what I mean? My mother's my hero. So I have so much respect for women. Like, it's deep. In fact, I respect women many times much more than I do men, which is my own bias. You know, but I'm sure I've said some shit or done some shit or, you know what I mean? Because I'm a man in this culture. I'm a participant in what we're all doing, men and women. You know what I'm saying? But have I sexually assaulted anybody? No, absolutely fucking not. And nor would I ever admit to it. And no, I'm just, these are jokes. I'm going too far, right? I'm now riding it back. My point is that, but that's a climate, right? The Me Too movement is a very particular climate, which then in that climate, and there'll be another climate. It's a healthy climate. It's a necessary climate. I'm glad it's happening. I think that anytime we can advance a people through a movement, right, because they've been held down, and they have more than basically anybody, is great. It's fantastic. But with that climate, right, can become, let's say, oversensitivity. What do you think of that? And in the world of like making jokes, it's like, no, you can't say that. That's why I'm so afraid to make those jokes. A little censor in my head goes, uh-oh, you're going to fuck up. Right. And then they did a joke about that, you know? Now, Louis C.K.
Also, too, it's like,
sorry, go ahead.
And since you're putting yourself out there,
right.
And I mean, your face is on a camera, and it's like everything you say has a digital footprint. Like, so, like, pretty much anything you say on this podcast
right.
is going to be forever.
That sounds like, but it's all, but the way you phrase it, it does sound like will be used against you in a court of law. That's how it sounds to me when you're saying it, because that's how it's communicated. Right? And that's what's scary for artists. Now let's get back to artists. People who express themselves for a living. People who even stream. Those are artists. Because you're trying to entertain people. You know? Or you're making a movie, or you're writing a script, or you're in a play. You know? You're putting yourself on the line to express yourself. And especially in a live environment, right? In a live environment, there's a lot of risk. Because you feel like, oh, if my brain zigs and zags in the wrong way, and I tried to be funny, but I wasn't funny in the right way. So what happens is you start to get more reserved. And then you start to filter too much because you're being I'm only speaking for myself, overly sensitive to yourself. Now you're self-censoring, and that's good in some cases.
Right.
But
it is
can
good.
Go too far, right?
I think again, you know, if you're a thinking person, then all of this... all of this attention towards language and certainly behavior and such, you need to be self-aware.
You do.
And if anyone who thinks, oh, I don't need to think about the things I say and do, well, you're just a fucking idiot.
You're
right?
an asshole. You're kind of an asshole.
Definitely.
Yeah, and there's that attitude. One is president, by the way. There's that attitude of, look at I'm wearing really short socks. It looks really funny on camera. I'm gonna put those away now. I'm self-censoring, right? If you're gonna put your foot out there, wear a longer condom, Jess. But you know, like, we live in a culture where there's the exact opposite took hold because political correctness was getting so, it felt so controlling, right? That the opposite side came in and said, I'm not fucking doing that. Fuck you. You're all snowflakes. Drop dead. And that's not good either. Not at all. Both are bad. Bad.
Because it's just coming up with excuses for why you can continue behavior that is hurtful. And again, you know, obviously, you know, that definition is going to change given context and who you're speaking to. But I don't mind the shift to that we all become more thoughtful about
I don't mind that either. I don't mind that either. I don't mind that either, but I think that there needs to be but I agree and I disagree. Right? I agree that that thoughtfulness is good. We need to be more contained. But I think the arts is about expression and taking chances.
Mm-hmm.
The arts, if I said, well, I'm like, what's the worst possible thing I could say right now? That's never a good question to ask myself.
No,
while
not
streaming
you.
live. So
Or
I'll go.
me, for that matter.
That's never. That's not good because my brain is programmed to say the worst possible thing at all times, just for laughs. But if I said the worst possible thing, it's like the ramifications would be so severe. Even if I'm trying to just discuss it, and sometimes if I say the worst possible thing, right? So I make some fucking joke about let's try to find some group that we can make fun of at the moment that won't offend anybody. This is gonna be tough because it can't have to do with ethnicity, because we're all white on this podcast, and that's a no-go. You have a little more leeway if you're not. That's just the truth, right?
I mean, the safest group is the Amish, I guess. Because
we can still make fun of the Amish.
They don't embrace technology. They're not going to find your Twitter history.
That's amazing. That's funny. So, oh my god, how do I follow that?
All right, or
yeah, guy, listen, don't listen. If you want to make fun of the Amish, I think you're wrong for churning out all those jokes. Da. Oh. So
slap the knee.
But
change camera angle and slap the knee.
Hold on a second. It hurts. I'm old. What are you gonna do? you're a sick man.
I love it.
You're a sick man. So, but like, why is it partial to one person and not another? Why does one person get punished and not another? Let's explain that. Who's exempt? Who's exempt from making these kinds of jokes? And now look, and what words are exempt? That made no sense. Let's go back to who's exempt.
Well,
My brain just skipped.
I think generally recognized oppressed, what you might call oppressed groups are more free. I mean, this also comes. We were talking about people owning words and such, and I also think is very interesting, right? And this is a recent development. When we were redneck's age, I couldn't say to redneck, "You're a redneck."
Nope.
He would fucking kick my ass.
Yep.
You did not say shit like that. You did not say redneck, hillbilly, sister fucker, whatever. You didn't say anything.
You're going a little far with the sister fucker, bro.
I'm sure
I think you're taking liberties, guy. Sorry.
I do recall that. Definitely.
I know. But what I'm saying is that you, along with many others, have taken over that word.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's no longer
You've ownership. Yeah, ownership. But not every. If I went down tomorrow to Kentucky, or which one's the bad one? More rednecky, Virginia, or is it West Virginia? I forget.
Mississippi.
Right. If I went down there, if I went down and say you guys are a bunch of rednecks, they'd punch me in the fucking face immediately. That was like because they'd hear my nasally fucking New York voice and they'd say like you. I'm not gonna say anything bad about you, but
well, I kind of want to just punch you because of that, no matter what.
Listen, bro, I have a nose that's made for punching. Right? It is a fucking easy target. It's like, you don't even, you could have like, which I can't say midget. You could have little person's arms, right? Mm-hmm. And you'd still hit my nose, right? It's like, you could be fucking Game of Thrones Tyrion.
You hit his nose with your car or something.
Yeah, basically. It's not hard. It's not hard. It says I almost got knocked out once by a paper airplane. So, humor, let's get back to humor. My technique for humor, right, is always, with other people, is make fun of myself first, right? That's how I get away with making fun of others, because they know we're all in on the same game. My intent is clear. We had talked about intent before. The context is clear. I don't mean you harm, just like I don't mean me harm when I say it. Does it make sense? So that sort of gives me an opening into somebody else to say, hey, I mean you no harm. Let's have an open, funny dialogue about whatever. Me and Carrie's black, right? And all we do is joke about race and this and that. Like it's constant because it's ironic. And it's fun that we can have that conversation. But if somebody was in the room with a microphone, I'd be going to moral jail for 30 fucking years for one part of a 4-hour conversation in one line.
And joking is also, it is a very effective way. I mean, so long as everyone's game, right?
Right.
To explore those kind of
Absolutely.
cultural and
Absolutely.
life differences.
Absolutely.
You know?
So if I were, I'm not going to because I don't believe in the usage of the word, but if I use the N word in something, right? I've come to the place where I just try to avoid it in my life if I can. So, but as an artist, as a person who communicates, by using a word in an ironic, and it doesn't have to be that word, or sarcastic or commentary way that involves other people sort of like trying to interpret what I'm trying to say, it creates conversation. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to say shit that makes other people talk about that shit, not have other people shut down me saying that shit. And that's the danger, dude. That's where we're at. We're shutting down conversation. It's really scary. It's really scary. And the funny thing to me is it's artists who are leading the charge on the very thing that's going to get them to stop being able to say their own thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing? And then it's also corporations who have to please everybody to not lose any business. So they use what I think is like sacrificial lambs. Like, you said a bad thing, and now you said a bad thing, and maybe you said a bad thing. There's my little ankle again. Ooh, dainty. So that's on camera. Good news. If you're just listening,
to see that you
can
put shoes on this
You
time.
did? I put my big foot out last time, but these are
I want you to know that I noticed that.
I'm glad you noticed it. But for those who are just listening, I do have shoes on today. And I'm wearing jeans that are not my skinny jeans, so I should be very ashamed. All my skinny jeans are in the laundry because I didn't want to offend fat people. That's basically why I didn't want to wear my skinny jeans today.
I was wondering when you were going to say the F word.
Yeah, the F word, fat. You're fat.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I'm obese.
Are you obese? Would you go?
Oh, yeah. According to the BMI scale, I'm certainly obese.
See, that's one of those things
But you
where,
mind
like, I'm not making fun of him, but, like, he just said, for anyone that doesn't know, I'm obese. What?
Yeah, obesity. You down?
So like, that's exactly like a textbook situation of like what I was like talking about earlier, where I was like, I just laugh in those situations. It's like, what did that guy just say?
So when you say something to Guy that's too personal, or he says something too personal, he don't use TMI. He goes straight for the BMI.
That's true.
He's like, hey, dude, sorry if that's BMI. You mean too much information? He's like, no, body measure index, dude. For real, I'm fat.
Body mass index.
Oh, forgive me. I didn't mean to. Listen, bro, I didn't mean to.
If you're gonna co-op my people's words,
people's words. Own your jelly, bro. Own your jelly, bro. I'm telling you, at some point, your people are gonna come back in vogue, and we're gonna be out. Skinny guys are gonna be like, skinny guys, a fucking twerp. Give me some of that fucking love handleness.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
We had a.
They do say the dad bod is in now.
Is it really?
The dad bod is in. Yeah, that's true. But that's a dad bod, right, dude? I'm like your dead grandfather for like 100 years.
Yeah, you've moved on from dad bod straight to sad bod. It's like
sad bod.
You've got that new fashion statement, the sad bod. I'm going to take it to the chat room for a second. Somebody had mentioned before Zed from South Africa, who had mentioned a woman who had said something unintentionally about literally baboons, like in South Africa, and was caught on camera because the cameraman panned over to actual people, and her career was ruined, her life was ruined. So her context destroyed her life. But then there are the people who actually mean it. So let me ask you this. What should be the penalty for somebody who's like, A, caught not meaning it, and B, caught meaning it? Redneck, you take the mic on this one.
So caught meaning it as in like...
Yeah, they found out somebody said something fucking hateful on a hot mic or... that's actually interesting too.
Or being recorded surreptitiously.
Right. Which I think is totally different than saying it publicly. I think it's totally different. Because conversation between friends is actually different than public conversation.
Yeah, that's definitely a different, like, because you know, the things that you would probably say to, you know, people that you're really close with, or like maybe even just, I guess you and Guy, because you guys are really close, right? Like the things that you would say to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like you guys would probably say
all kinds of crazy shit.
What you would say around other people. But it's like, if somebody like, I don't know. I guess I don't know. Recorded you without you knowing.
Oh my God,
definitely
it'd be horrible
cause a
because
problem.
the context. I have a friend who's Latin American of some persuasion, and I'm not really all that Jewish, and he's Latin, but he's not like. I don't even know where to go with that without offending somebody, or the risk meter in my head's like beep 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 beep, you fucking idiot, you're gonna fuck up, you're gonna get fired from a job you don't actually have, beep 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 beep. So, but him and me, we send back, we try to find ways to work in our two respective slurs back and forth over and over and over all day long, and it's funny because we both love each other, and we say it to be shocking to the other one, but the context is love. So is the word, whatever the word I choose in that one, or the word he chooses, are those words actually innately evil between us? What do you think, guys?
No, I absolutely don't think it's evil. Like you're allowed to have your own language,
right?
Or
accepted
boundaries.
Accepted boundaries. I agree completely. So.
But you know that with like somebody like Guy, right? Because you know, like if he says something to you're already pretty well aware of the content of his character and what kind of guy he is. So like you know where he's coming from with something like that.
Absolutely. But in the case of where, say, the president of the United States gets recorded talking about pussy grabbing and all this stuff, that's a private conversation.
Yeah, not something you really want to say.
Whether
as the president.
Yeah, whether I like him or I don't like him, he's not speaking into a mic to the American public saying that. That was a private conversation that was recorded. And I wasn't there. I don't know the context of that. I'm not going to judge him for that. Guys say all kinds of crazy shit in other contexts. You know what I'm saying? That just could be some guy just trying to lie and brag. So was he trying to be funny or brag in that moment? I don't know. I wasn't there. So I think there's a difference between what we're broadcasting to the world, I'm broadcasting right now, and somebody being like, hey, here's a tape recorder. And the inside jokes, like inside jokes are inside jokes. You know what I'm saying? Like, and when people from the outside are like, you can't make that inside joke. Well, it's a joke between my friends. You know, I'm not saying it in a crowd full of people. It's an inside joke between two people. We share a language that we've established. But in our current culture, you can't be funny anymore. You can't even have inside jokes. You just got to, like, follow the fucking new guidelines that are coming out week by week. Because they shift every week, and nobody's sending it to me. I keep, like, emailing and be like, hey, when are you going to give me the fucking guidelines of what I can and can't say? Like the
I guess that's kind of where you can say it's probably best that you... I guess for like context, it's like you wouldn't, the way that you conduct yourself around people, like maybe at your job, is like not how you would conduct yourself like in the privacy of your own home.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
so like definitely around people with privacy that you can trust and they understand you.
I remember, I don't want to say too much about this because I don't want to get myself in trouble. There was like, I was working with somebody, and they were trying on different clothes, not in front of me. They would go change and come back. And I thought something they were wearing looked like a fucking cocktail dress or something. I don't know what it was. It looked like there were like, I don't know, palm trees on it or some shit. I don't know. And my brain just went to comments. Oh, that looks like I laughed. I said, oh, that one looks like a cocktail dress. Whatever I said. Then somebody else went to somebody above me or whatever and was like, oh, he's pissing everybody off.
Mm. Oh, he commented on her appearance or something.
There's a fucking giraffe on it. I don't know. What do you want me to say?
No.
Sorry. You know what I mean? I'll be the first person to say sorry. Here's another thing I don't like in our culture. This is a rant. We're ranting. I hate this actually. The fact that people are not even given the opportunity to not only learn from their mistake, if it was an actual mistake, they're not even given the opportunity to apologize for it. That's really twisted, dude. Because people say shit that rubs other people the wrong way all day long. Every day. I'm sure today I've said at least one thing. Even if I only encountered one person all day long, at some point during the day I said something that ruffled a feather. It's impossible not to. It's communication. And if that person's feelings were hurt by that thing, I'm the first person to be like, I'm really sorry.
Definitely.
Because I don't want your feelings to be hurt. But if that opportunity isn't allowed, that's scary, man. And that's what happens. Is nope, judge, jury, boom, fuck you. You don't even get to be sorry for that thing, or even learn from it. Go ahead, guy. You had something to say.
No. So I was just thinking this because we've been talking about so much about like whatever you say on the record or had been recorded, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally can be used against you. And I was trying to think of an example of an artist, specifically a comedian, who has been called to account for what they did on stage and really been put through the ringer.
Many times.
But I don't think that's really true.
Oh, it is.
It's really about listen, Kevin Hart's stand-up was never in question.
Right.
It was his tweets.
But right? Dave Chappelle used a lot of what was considered transphobic words and all those things recently. And he took a lot of shit for it. But he makes so much money right now. And because he, this is my opinion, right? And it is subject to change. Hashtag don't hold me to anything I say ever. Just kidding. But he makes so much money, and because he represents a minority group, he gets certain passes. I believe that.
Sure.
I believe he's still held to task for it. Don't get me wrong. And he still was like they really fucked with him over it.
Right, but if like Bob Saget came out and
forget it. It's over. No more America's Home videos. Dude, that's all you'll be making for the rest of your life. You're done. But that's understandable too. I get why that exists. Is because people who look like him and look like me and look like you have, as a group, not as individuals, but as a group, more power, more money, more influence, and more privilege. And that's fact. That's factual. I'll never, ever argue with that. So with that comes some cost. And that cost is we have to be a little bit more sensitive. We have to. Because other people have things in their life that are much more unfair than us not being able to say a few words.
Right.
I totally agree with it. Because I don't get watched when I go to walk through the aisles, except Rite Aid. I get watched in Rite Aid. Because there's 2 entrances to my local Rite Aid, and I use both entrances to walk through the entire store to get out of the cold in the winter and to get air conditioning in the summer. And the guy looks at me every time, and I say hello to him. Hey, man, how's it going? And he's like, you motherfucker. Because I can't tell if he's mad that I'm wasting their electric bill or I'm stealing shit. And he keeps looking to see the day that I steal something. But I just won't.
You know you're eyeing that box of Sucrets or something.
Well, I've got a certain friend who may or may not be on this stream who's got a rather large BMI. They would appreciate that ice cream. Sounds good, right?
Yeah.
I actually heard you lick your lips from across town. Redneck's like
Rader's got a good sense of humor.
Well, he does. So in the context of me and him, right, here's a perfect example. I can make that joke. And everybody on the stream, I hope, knows that I'm not body shaming him. I'm actually having a laugh at something because I don't want my friend to die of a heart attack. I don't know where I'm going. I'm shaming him. Maybe I'm shaming him. It's out of love.
It's out of love.
It's out of love. When I hug him, I can't get my fucking arms around him. It's uncomfortable for me. Sorry. I love you, man.
He opened the door for that, right? Because he says,
exactly,
and I quote, it's like,
I'm
a very obese man.
Right.
Like, well, okay, so, like, he's not sensitive to that. Like, so you could, like, make a joke and, like, you were making jokes about his, his body mass index. And it's like, that's fine. But, like, for somebody else, they might be really insecure.
No, I totally understand that. But that's not my fault. That's not here's where we're going to have to like find some sort of summary to this. Right? I love all people. Especially fat people.
Baby.
No. So, and skinny people, whatever. I like everybody's the same to me. Like I just like you if you're nice. But you know what I mean? And if I ever am in a room with somebody and I say something that I think they're actually going to take to heart and I think I've actually offended them, I'll be the first to go and put my arm around them and get accused of an unwanted hug, but that's another story. But I'll put my arm around them and I'll say, listen, I love you and I'm so sorry. Let me make clear what my intention was and the context of which I said this was.
Right.
So that they know I'm a friend, or we talked about this last time, friend or foe, I'm a friend. And I have their back. And these are just words to play with language for me and to have a good time, to free like a free spirit. So where does all this go, baby? How do we deal with a culture that both can't take a joke, because it can't, you know what I'm saying? And we need jokes. We need people to be funny. It's necessary. And we need them to take chances. And at the same time, for some people, don't give a shit what comes out of their mouth. How at this point in time do people function? Because I see people on both sides. I got into a game the other day. I was playing a video game. That's what I do sometimes. That's funny. I'm going to mention the chat room in a second. But got in a game, and the guy right away, screaming into the mic, he's like, oh, he sees my Twitch name. He's like, oh, Jeskid Twitch. You're a streamer, blah, blah, blah. He starts mocking me. Cool, I don't give a shit. Then he's like, goes on and on and on. I said, well, I think I'll maybe just leave this, right? And he's like, why are you going to leave, you pussy? Using all kinds of words. We're not going to play. Screaming at me. I'm like, bro, I just met you. And
I love the impression.
I just couldn't. I had to be like, I said to him, and then so anyway, right? But the guy, I said to him, listen, what happened to you to make you like this? And then I didn't really want to hear the answer, so I just left him with that. Really, that was my way to taunt him. But my point is that he's on the other side of the spectrum. He doesn't care. In fact, he's tired of being told he can't. So his first thing to do is to bully.
Just lash out.
Bully, right? And try to bully. I can't really be bullied. I don't give a shit. Let me go to the chat room for a second. Mr. 89 Puppies, because
90 is just too many.
90 was too many, and 88 was just disgusting. Says, I think the only difference between Jess and I is that if someone gets offended by something I said, it's not on me to apologize on. It's on them to stop getting offended. And that's interesting. I think the answer, you're taking one side of it, and I take the other. The answer for me is somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
The answer for me is somewhere in the middle. I will always disclaimer things, say I'm sorry after the fact, but I will make the joke. I'll take the chance and make the joke. And that still puts me in jeopardy, but I feel like I'm covering on both sides. I feel like I'm giving myself, some room to operate so they know where I'm coming from. Because I want people to like me. And maybe I go too far in that direction, and maybe we're in a world where we're going too far in that direction. I don't know.
And we don't have full reign. Like we shouldn't be able to say just whatever the fuck we want.
No, we shouldn't. Well, because
people shouldn't be just offended by any.
We should though. We should. I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to interrupt. We should be able to say whatever the fuck we want, but we should also understand there are consequences for just blurting out fire in a movie theater. There are consequences. You can't. Because you can.
Oh, yeah.
You could say whatever you want, but
sure,
there are ramifications for certain things. But at the same time, yes, if a room full of 100 people are listening to some shit I say on a stage or on a Twitch thing, and they're like, "Oh my God, they talked about, I don't know, kids with bicycles getting stolen. How funny that is! I'm so offended. I got my bike stolen. Well, I don't know. Should have put a chain on it." Like Beyonce put a ring on it. I don't know. That's your fucking problem. I'm riding your bike home. I don't know what to say to you. Fuck you. So but I don't go in that direction. Some people, they go on the offensive after the fact. I'm like, I would say, listen, I'm sorry I offended you with the bike joke, but I'll do the bike joke the next night because I think you're fucking nuts. But right. at the moment, I won't want that person to feel bad, so I'll coddle them a little bit. Okay, but I think that we're in a danger point where you shouldn't be able to make that joke about bikes at all. And that's what people are telling people. And that's what college campuses are doing to conversation. That's terrifying. Comedians don't want to play college campuses because they feel like if they say the wrong thing, they're going to lose an entire fan base, and then they'll lose corporate sponsorship because of it.
I actually think Joe Rogan says that too. I think Joe Rogan mentioned that on his podcast.
Yeah, he talks about it a lot. Yeah, I agree with him completely on this. Hey, look, Joe Rogan, a lot of people disagree with his point of view on a lot of things. But he definitely is a complex person who believes complex things, and so am I, and so are you, Guy, and so is Redneck, and so are people in the chat room. We're like a lot of people with a lot of brains that are not on one side of an issue. You know what I'm saying? and people are trying to polarize us into it. People are trying to polarize us into one way of thinking, and that is concerning. And that way is on both sides. It's like, think like us or think like us. I don't think like neither of you. I'm a guy that says stupid shit sometimes. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Just chill the fuck out. Somebody in the chat room said, I wish people would just relax. Me too. But at the same time in relaxing, I still wish that they had some common sense about certain things that they could say that might harm somebody else. You know, I've had family members who just were so blunt that it was cruel, you know? So that's not my way, is to be cruel with my words. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be particular keywords or this and that. There's jokes that would be cruel, and there's jokes that I've made that have been cruel, and I've walked them back. But I want to live in a culture where I'm not afraid to take the chance to make that joke, because most of my jokes are successful. 99 out of 100, I think, or 999 out of 1,000. But every once in a while, there's a fucking flop or some shit that went too far, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I used to have a disclaimer on my. Jeskid TV that said, I say all kinds of crazy shit about children or whatever the fuck I said, right? But I said, I'm just kidding. Jeskid loves everyone always, right?
All right.
You could dig up whatever the fuck you want about me. I don't give a shit. And find this thing, or I said that thing, and then this thing's now in vogue that I said this, or I had this belief that I don't believe anymore. And out of context, you could rip that out without the original disclaimer. And you could say, this is what he thinks, this is what he means. And that's scary. And what that does is it says, be more careful in the future. But maybe I need to be less careful. And I struggle with this as somebody who is constantly putting stuff into the world. What is your take on this, struggling with this thing? And somebody in the chat room said, got to let people say offensive things, First Amendment, baby. Yeah, that's a whole nother subject, because your ability to say something versus the consequences from that are very different. So, and that's really, First Amendment's more about government and all that shit. But listen, I'm a big believer in saying what the fuck I want. I say all kinds of crazy shit. But I'm not an asshole about it. That's the thing. But what is an asshole? Well, that's contextual, right? What do you think, Guy? I threw the ball at you.
Yeah, so I mean, exactly what you said, right? Like, yes, we have, thank goodness, in this country, we have freedom to say whatever we want. Right. But to say that you don't have a responsibility is to abdicate your value and what you're contributing to society. If you say, I'm just going to say offensive shit because I'm allowed to, then we don't need you in the conversation, right? And people have a right to ignore you and possibly ostracise you.
Right.
Now, of course, would be the argument of the triggered people on college campuses, right. Of course.
Yeah.
But it is true, like, and the climate can change on a dime, and you have to be aware of it. Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, but again, like, the biggest voices are going to be heard, and they're going to, and we're in a constant flux going back and forth. Sometimes when I get really upset about, waves one way or the other, I say, well, things will hopefully normalize at that point.
Hopefully.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I think if you look at history, I mean, it's very interesting to look at, like, just in terms of activism, right? And that might be in the heart of what we're talking about, right? With the political correctness movement, which actually has been going on for a long time. Right?
Yeah.
A long time. And it's finally kind of got its day in the sun, because we've kind of sort of figured out a lot of the other stuff. We're like, okay, yeah, the whole racism, Jim Crow thing, that was really a big fuck up, so let's move on from that. And so we're moving into more granular areas, and specifically we're kind of refocusing on language and attitudes and contextual speech that can harm someone else. And of course there's going to be an overreaching reaction to that and a backlash, and hopefully again the ship rights itself after the storm.
Like they say, you made your bed, so you lay in it.
Right, but how long do you actually have to lay in it? Because like we talked about earlier, if everybody laid in that bed forever, you'd have no growth. right? I mean, there has to be some point of like, oh my God, this person is not reformed, but they've grown. Like, I don't want to stunt growth.
That was kind of what I was touching on a little bit ago. Well, not to interrupt, was that, people change over time. So something that you said, 8 years ago, that's 8 years ago.
Right.
And I can say for a fact, I mean, no context on you at all. I mean, we loosely know each other, right? It's like,
in the loosest way possible, baby.
Sure,
please.
Well, I can say, like, you're not the Jeskid that you were 8 years ago.
I'm a little more.
You probably are in some respects.
My left nipple's bigger than it used to be.
Well, physically, mentally, however you
no,
want to shape that.
You're
a different guy, and you've learned
100%.
over the years, and you conduct yourself probably different than
I've regressed. Yes.
what you would. Yeah.
So,
that's the kind of person I am. I'm always like I'm really bad for. Maybe it's not bad. I don't know. I guess it's kind of like how you look at it. But like I'm a really big benefit of the doubt. It's just like they say, well, this guy said this 10 years ago. It's like, well, what is he like now? Who is he now? That's what I want to know.
Well, I agree with you, and I want to live in a culture that wants to find that out. You know what I'm saying? Or I want to live in a culture that has conversation. I don't want to live in a culture where somebody has an opposing point of view, they don't have the right to speak at all. But I also don't want to give a megaphone to a moron.
Right, and
like,
everyone is allowed to think what they think, and that's okay. Like,
absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with having an opinion, even if you think it sucks. Like, it's like there's nothing wrong with like having an opinion or having a stance or having a feeling on something.
Right.
Like, that's all okay.
I'd like to go to the chat room. I don't usually give attention to silliness. But what am I talking about? That's all I create is silliness. But Jim said, Jeskid, if you threw a beer can in the air, what kind of lady would be able to catch it the best? A brunette, and put a happy face. That's very cute. And you have the right to speak at my channel. You will not be banned for that silly joke. But if you came in here and you used the N-word because you wanted to hurt people's feelings, well, that's just either trying to be shocking or stupid, and you'd be shown the exit very quickly. But you'd be able to say it, I guess. But your joke was fucking awesome. I mean, it was because it was so silly and so anti. Yeah. But that's what we're talking about, right? That's a shocking moment because I'm talking about something super serious. This guy's talking about ninjas in space. I kind of tuned him out halfway through. I'm just kidding. I love you. And then this guy made a funny joke. And I was like, oh, look, a ball. And I watched the ball bounce along the street. But that's comedy, right? Comedy is just something gets your eye, unexpected, and you laugh. You say something unexpected, and you laugh. Your pants falls down while you're in a restaurant. And you laugh only if you're super well hung. Right?
Well,
if not, you run out.
This is where Redneck Rebel steps.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I've got a girthy penis.
I'm not really
right.
I'm not an expert on those.
So 89 Puppy says the best comedy comes out of tragedy, right? I agree with that. But sometimes the best comedy doesn't come out of other people's tragedy. You know what I'm saying? Like, the best comedy doesn't come from me being like, hey, haha, your mom died. It's not funny.
Right.
I mean, I didn't like her, but see, it just, but I can feel the joke dying just like your mom in that moment. So if you're going to dig a ditch,
dig it deep
and just keep, and you're in trouble, just jump in the ditch and be like, I'm in here, ditches. I'm ditching out. You know what I'm saying? You have to embrace that moment. But so for me, here's a guilty pleasure of mine. When I create an awkward moment, right? It's uncomfortable. But for some reason, my brain says, make it more awkward, Jess. They don't like it. Just keep going. Spread it out. Spread it out. You know? And just go to town on it. You know, like a toss that salad. Keep going. Anyway, I'm done with that. Sorry. So, where is comedy in America, in the world right now? It's in a dangerous place. Where is being able to express yourself right now? It's in a dangerous place. Because self-expression is at an all-time high, right? And censorship
and thought policing
is also at an all-time high. Corporate censorship is at an all-time high because just like it's messed up to make all oranges the same, or apples, better topic, by, they splice them. They're all the same. They all taste the same, but then the apples never evolve, right? And then the bugs start killing the apples, so they have to increase the pesticides. You start dying from the pesticides because all apples have to be the same. So once you start making all apples the same, we all stop evolving.
Wow, Jesse, that was one of the most strained metaphors I've heard in a long time.
Facts, asshole.
But no, of course they were
Apple facts. I watched a documentary. I spewed the bullshit I learned in it. Okay, asshole. You think I made that up? Those are my facts? No, fuck yeah, I'm not that smart. But it's
who's change for apples, asshole?
Change for apples. Think different. Where do you think I got that from? I don't fucking know. But my point is that we have to evolve, right? We have to, and the way we evolve is conversation and differences and bringing up new shit and new ideas. And comedy is part of that. Comedy is commentary. Comedy is risk-taking. Jokes, laughter is like the best medicine. Laughter is good for the soul. I mean, how many sayings about this? There's like people out there that they have courses where they just laugh. At me. They just watch Jeskid TV all day. I wish.
No.
There's like 6 of them. That's it. That's the only views I get.
That's the last thing they put
No, yeah, nobody wants to see that. So I think we've done a pretty good discussion about comedy and the danger to it. And the fact that, is anyone allowed to be funnier anymore? I don't know. I really don't. I think that it could get worse. I think it could get worse. And that's scary for me, because I just want to keep being myself and being creative. And I think that there are generational gaps that happen. I think that people of a certain era, and it was an era before me, right? I was at work once. I make all kinds of crazy jokes, and my boss at the time was like, "Oh, you Archie Bunker?" I'm like, "Whoa." That's not. And for those that don't know, Archie Bunker was very beloved racist neighbor. And I'm not the racist neighbor at all. But I have a wild sense of humor. I grew up in New York, where all we did was make fun of each other. That's how my friends got along, right? We all different ethnic backgrounds, Chinese guy, black guy, Puerto Rican guy. Everybody was different. And all we did was make fun of each other's difference, but we loved each other. We were jostling. That was our version of like the kitty cats, like jumping on each other as kittens. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, that's the culture I grew up in. There's a culture of laughter and making fun of each other in a harmless way. And then I enter a grown-up world where people are sometimes making fun of each other in a harmful way. And my sort of thing is this. The way I see jokes is this. If you make a joke, I said this to a friend of mine who was saying something racist to me, right? And I have friends who say racist shit all the time, of all ethnicities. Because people are Avenue Q. Everyone's a little racist. But
only white people can be racist.
Shush. It's a whole nother conversation. So anyway, but in this case, he was white. And he was like, ba, 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 ba. I said, listen, bro, that's fine. You want to make those jokes. But would you ever make those jokes in front of those people? Would you include them in their ability to laugh at those jokes too? And that's where you know a joke is not really a great joke. Or it's a joke that's kind of like teetering on hurting the stereotyping of a people, right? I mean, and in a negative sense, weaponizing that. But I think that, and shock value, that's a whole nother thing. Somebody mentioned shock value in the chat. Sometimes you say it just to shock each other. But I'm saying as a joke just to continuously tell that joke and reinforce that stereotype. But if I'm willing to say almost anything I say in front of almost all people. Every once in a while, there's something I keep for inside jokes. But for the most part, I'm pretty open about it. Because I feel like I want everybody to be included. I want everybody to laugh as much as they can.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Like, if I can. And then you have ones that are more shocking, less shocking. I get that. There's levels to it. But don't you agree, guys? Like, the jokes, for the most part, sort of... maybe I'm wrong about this. Jokes should try to be, at least attempt to be inclusive. Or if they're going to be risky, they should be allowed to be risky. They should be allowed to be shocking and offensive. But they should be inclusive in that shocking and offensiveness.
Absolutely.
Make sense?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? I don't have to be like, because the person's offended because I'm making fun of, Eskimo children. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I was an Eskimo child. I lived in a, what do they live in? They don't live in those things anymore. Igloos. Right? I don't really know if they live in igloos. But they should be like, oh my God, Well, it's like, listen, I'm sorry. I knew you were in the audience. I recognized that you were in the audience, and I made this joke, knowing you were there, because knowing what a stereotype that is, that's not true. And sometimes the joke is that the stereotype is not true, and that's why I'm making the joke. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I feel like
Right.
when you can't make the joke at all, even when it's ironic, even when it's sarcastic or it's commentary, that's scary because that commentary is what creates conversation to let people know that those people don't actually live in igloos.
Well, and here's the other funny thing is that people complain about virtue signal.
What is that?
Basically, like you say something or display something to show that you're more virtuous in one area or another. But
Never
I do
heard
think
this.
that is comedy where you make fun of a thought that is hateful or hurtful.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you can always turn it on its end. And I think that's where thoughtful comedy, I think that's where thoughtful art comes from. But again, since we're talking about comedy specifically, sorry, 89 Puppy said virtue signaling is like dick measuring, to explain it in layman's terms.
Fair
It's
enough.
not.
Yeah.
I wouldn't agree with that. But the fact of the matter is, if you're going to use your comedic powers, you can use it for good. And I think regardless of what we want to say or what's easy or cheap, this all brings me back to what I was talking about, being thoughtful about things, right?
Right.
Saying like, how can I make a funnier joke? And the funnier joke is not going to be a regular stereotype or a tired trope about one group of people or
Right.
whatever. It's going to be turning that thing on its edge,
Right.
and exposing the hypocrisy of the idea. So that's my rant.
That's awesome. So let's last subject, 5 minutes or less, and then we'll take it to the chat room for a few seconds. Redneck and Guy, feel free to chime in. I'm a big subscriber to Equal Opportunity Offender, right? Whereas I make fun of basically everything, but I also make fun of me, and I make sure that I'm a center point of that comedy to make it a safe space for making fun of people if such thing exists. What do you think?
100% agree. I mean, that's why, part of being an obese person, right, is that you use it first so no one else can.
That's right.
And also, so people feel safe if they want to say something.
Right.
You disarm them.
Right.
But they can also, make that joke. But I agree. You have to be humble in order to create good comedy.
Right.
Because if you don't recognize your own inherent weaknesses, whether those are superficial or actually true, then you're not going to be able to find the humor in everything.
I agree with that completely. And
I feel like I'm a really loose person.
Ooh.
Saying like, I just like, there's really not a whole lot out there that's really going to phase me, I guess. I guess is a word you could use. Like,
sure.
Because, I mean, of course, like, just about every time I talk into a microphone, I get some kind of, like, redneck joke, right?
No.
I mean, like, but sometimes it can be really funny. I mean, like, I had a guy one time, this video game we're playing, I said something, hey guys, how are you? And this guy immediately shoots off with, you sound like you work at the Jiffy Lube. I actually died. I thought that was so great.
Yeah.
It's like I can laugh at myself and like laugh at that. I can appreciate that, and it's like it's just like, people that make, whatever kind of redneck jokes. It's just kind of like whatever,
but what
I make fun of myself too.
But what if for whatever reason that did like offend you and you're like, fuck you, dude, or whatever. Yeah. Like, would you want an apology or
if some random guy said something to me that offended me, I just wouldn't talk to them because I really don't have anything to lose by not being their friend.
Yeah, okay.
It's just kind of like that for me, where it's like, even with differing opinions, like some guy can have an opinion or something that I just don't agree with, and that's okay. And like I won't, like harp on people or try to make them change their mind or anything like that. It's just like, if I disagree with someone or I think that we just don't match up, personality wise, or we don't think the same things or whatever. It's just like it's okay, and I just I won't surround myself with that kind of person.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I think that
Brandon to do.
I'm gonna conclude this because it's been an amazing, amazing discussion. We covered things like intent, context, people taking things too seriously, people not considering what they say, the gray area in between. But I will say, as a final statement on this, like a fucking Jerry Springer moment, if you're gonna say something really funny, or that you think is funny, and it is offensive, well, it better be really fucking funny. Because there's nothing worse than being offensive and having the shit not get a laugh. You know what I'm saying? Like, you better bring it. You better have thought that joke through if you're going to offend. And if you come out at a very base level, people are just going to think that you're a hateful asshole. And that's more my advice for future comics of America. That's the worst ending statement I've ever made. I think even Jerry Springer would be ashamed. You Jerry Springer, you fucking scumbag. Oh, wait, I forgot the second beat.
Bleep yourself.
Well, like the first time I said, suck and you fuck sick dick fuck cunt. Sorry. Damn it. I'm bad with this button. I'm covering my tracks. I'm backtracking that joke. See, it wasn't funny, what I tried to say, and it wasn't poignant, so I just went retroactive with the joke, and it worked. I just used the fucking... Just like my sex life, when it's not working, I use mechanical devices. Okay, anyway... What? Just my hair looks nice. I don't know where to go. That's an old joke of me and guys. So anyway, this has been a really great discussion with Redneck Rebel and Guy Rader. This is a Jeskidding Show, episode 5, and it is called Political Correctness. Is anyone allowed to be funny anymore? And the answer to that is to be determined, my friend. To be determined.